So what I thought I would do is I would tell you guys a story. I wanted to give you guys a chance to get to know me a little bit to kind of bolster my bona fides. So as you watch my YouTube videos, my YouTube channel, you get the confidence of knowing that there's a reason why I know a lot of the stuff that I do. So I have a pretty interesting background on Wall Street. I worked as a stockbroker, as a trader, and as a trading instructor. Today, I'm going to be talking about my life as a stockbroker. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a live stream talking about my life as a stock trader. And then I'm going to follow that up with the following day with confessions of a trading instructor. So I thought I would break them up because I don't want the live streams to go on for too terribly long. I'm going to start by telling you a story about how I got into the stock market, how I got into the profession of a stockbroker. When I was in college, I triple majored at Cornell College in history, English, and ancient Greek. Okay, there was not a business course in sight or an economics course. Okay, I was kind of an academic snob. I wanted to study the loftier thoughts of the big thinkers of history, and I wanted to learn about the world because I wanted to travel. And I kind of looked down my nose at my business major friends. Of course, looking back, if I could go back, I'd slap myself in the face. Come on, Anderson, take a business course, take an economic class. Anyway, so after college, I went to graduate school, working on my master's degree, again in classics, Greek and Latin. Okay, and then I woke up one day in graduate school and I was tired of being poor, I was tired of studying. So I sold everything I had and I bought a one-way ticket to Japan. Went to Japan, and after a few years there, I met a girl, and, as life would have it, and she was on her way to New York as a business move, as a career move. So I proposed to her at the airport in Japan, and she said, "Okay, I'll marry you, but I'm still going to New York." So she got on the plane, and a month later, I showed up in New York. We got married right away. We got pregnant right away. And my first job in New York was working for Japan Travel Bureau, JTB, which is the largest travel agency in the world, because I spoke Japanese by then, right? It was pretty nice perks. My official title was director of hotel reservations, right? But I'd be responsible for negotiating hotel space and restaurant space for these tours of Japanese coming in. So I did that for a year. And, the first kid came along, and boy, I said, boy, I've got to start making some actual grown-up money, because I wasn't making anything really at that job. Perks were nice, but I couldn't spend much time at these fancy restaurants and hotels because I had to go home because I had a pregnant wife at home. So I started looking around for a way to make money in a serious way. So what does a young man do when he's in New York and he's got to make a lot of money? He goes to work on Wall Street. So I answered an ad in the paper for a stockbroker trainee. And if you've ever seen the movie Boiler Room, that'll give you an idea of my first job on Wall Street. You should watch that movie. It's a great movie. And yeah, they got a lot of things right in that movie. There I was, and I didn't know anything about the stock market. I didn't even know what the hell a stock was. It was it was an eye-opening experience. All I knew is that I wanted to make a lot of money to support my family. That was my priority. Okay, I needed to be a provider. I didn't have any particular interest in the stock market, but I knew the kind of money that I could make, as a stockbroker. But then I didn't know the kind of money that could be made as a stockbroker. Now, back then, the routine among stockbrokers was cold calls. Okay, you pick up that phone, and the objective is to make 300 calls a day. Now, of course, you wouldn't be talking to 300 people. It's to dial that phone 300 times. So first of all, I had to study for the Series 7 test, right? That took me 2 months because it was a tough test. I did finally pass it, and then I could start working. But my first 2 weeks on the job is all about calling all the other brokers in the office and practicing. They would give you a book for answering objections. And they had every single objection you could imagine in there. Like, oh, I don't have any money. I've got to talk to my wife. I don't like to take risks. And you would have answers to every one of those objections that you would have to memorize. And then you would practice delivering those answers on the phone. So the first 2 weeks is calling around the other brokers, and their job was to make your life difficult. Their job was to throw the objections at you, and your job was to overcome their objections and get them to do a sale. It was a very rough environment. There were no women in the office. It was all guys. And what they like to do is they like to hire former athletes, like the college football, star and that kind of thing. They want young guys who were athletic and were hungry, and they were relatively smart, or at least they could be taught. They didn't really want guys who had an economics background or a business background. What they want is a clean slate. They want to teach you what you need to know in order to make sales, because it's about making the sales, it's about making money. So after a couple of weeks of that, you go live. And the routine was a 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, so you would spend the first 3 weeks just calling people and gathering prospects, and then qualifying. You made all your money in that last week. So going into the last week, they have a big sales meeting about a particular stock that we're going to pitch. And then a big rah meeting, then we all rush out and get on the phones and start closing sales. Now, this is in 1987. So my first week on the job was the week before the crash in 1987, Black Monday. All right, that was my, and so as I started to make my first calls, the market had just had the single largest drop in stock market history. It was a rough time to be calling complete strangers, trying to convince them to buy a stock from me. So that was my entry. And then after a couple of years in that kind of environment, I managed to work my way up to brand name brokerage firms. Now, when I got to that blue chip firm, their emphasis was different. They actually want you, it was very academic, right? You would sit in on seminars at least twice a week. Someone from some office would come in and give you a long study session on how mortgage-backed securities work, right? So their emphasis was on, it's very academic. You learn about products, in depth. So I came from an environment where the focus was on sales, and then I go to the environment where the focus was on academics. So I was very well-rounded by then. So when I started working at this large firm, I quickly became one of the best producers in the office, because most of the other guys in those offices came from Ivy League schools, and they were all buttoned down, and it's all about learning academically how to read a balance sheet, that kind of thing. And they didn't know very much about actual sales. So when I could get on the phone with prospects and combine my sales skills along with the actual academics that I now have in my arsenal, I rose through the ranks really, really fast. So that's how I started as a stockbroker. Now, there are a lot of tricks that they would teach us as a stockbroker, and a lot of it centers around status alignment. Now, back then we didn't call it status alignment, but Rob Bruss, you guys all know Rob Bruss, but he put a term to it. I said, oh yeah, that's status alignment. And the idea was that when you're talking to a prospect, you are never impressed by the prospect. You have to learn how to put on a face. It's all about being confident in yourself and in the sales pitch. So when you're talking to a neurosurgeon or a CEO or a CFO or a business owner, your job is not to be impressed. Your job is to make that person feel like you are doing them a favor by taking time out of your day to talk to them. Status alignment, right? And one of the things that I did in order to do that is I went out and bought a cell phone. Now, remember, this is 1987. Well, 1988 by then, right? Cell phones were not in wide use. If you had a cell phone, you're kind of a big deal. It's kind of a status symbol. Hey, you got a cell phone? And back then, the cell phones were huge. They were massive. You've all probably seen that scene in the original Wall Street movie where Gordon Gekko's on the beach and he's talking to the brick. So I didn't have one of those, but what I did get is I ordered a phone through Motorola. Now, at the time, I couldn't afford it, but I bought it anyway. I bought it through my American Express card. They had a deal, and it cost me $1,600, and it was like a little suitcase, right? And when I went on the road to visit prospects, I would go into their office and I'd make arrangements for one of my buddies back in the office to call me on that phone while I was in the meeting. Okay. Now, I didn't like to use that phone very often because back then you paid by the minute, okay, to use the phone. So I used it sparingly. But what I do is I'd have him call me on that phone while I'm in the meeting. And of course, during that meeting, I am talking to the prospect about a particular stock that I want to get that prospect into. And of course, I pick up the phone and I would pretend like there's an important call at the other end, and I say something like, "Hey, John, oh, okay, you want to do another 10,000? Okay, cool. Let me finish up here, and I'll take care of it for you." And I hang up, And now, first of all, the prospect is kind of impressed just when you walk in with that little suitcase, a cell phone. It's kind of, all right, this guy is a pretty serious dude. These guys had everything down to a science. And one of the first things you had to do when you joined the firm is you go out and buy 3 Hickey Freeman suits. Okay. And they knew a guy. The office manager had a guy. I said, "Okay, Anderson, go to the store, ask for so-and-so, tell him that I sent you, and he'll set you up." The marching orders were you had to get 3 suits: a solid navy suit, one a navy pinstripe suit, and one a charcoal pinstripe suit. And then you had to get at least a dozen button-down white shirts. Not blue, not striped, a solid white button-down shirt. Then you had to get the right kind of ties, the right kind of shoes. And so when you walked into our office, you just see a sea of white shirts. Everyone's wearing the same outfit. But that's what they wanted. The idea was not to teach you how to be an analyst, not to study how to study balance sheet. Their job is to teach you how to sell, how to make sales. That's what it was all about. So eventually, I came up against some traders. I met them in a bar, and it's kind of one of those things, right? So when you're at these bars on Wall Street, you can't tell who's the stockbroker, who's an analyst, because we're all wearing suits, right? And of course, I built up to a bar and over here, these 2 traders talking about their day. And I kind of wormed my way into the conversation, pretended like I was a trader, right? And then I would listen. And I found out, how these guys made their money. Now, stockbrokers are just glamorized salesmen. Okay, their job is to sell. Their priority isn't necessarily to make the customer money, because the way a stockbroker makes money is on commissions. You make money on getting the sale. Besides, what the hell did I know about picking stocks? So when I started out, I just, all right, you want me to sell that stock? It must be good, so I would sell it. Now, traders are different animals. Traders, they eat what they kill. Okay, so traders have to do profitable trades. It's not enough just to pick a stock. You have to pick the right stock. You have to pick a good trade, because traders, they get a piece of the profits, right? So they have to, that's how they made their money. And by that time, I was tired of pitching stocks to clients, and too often I had to make phone calls, uncomfortable phone calls to customers, giving them the bad news that they lost money on that stock. I always did. And that's one of the things that separated me from a lot of my contemporaries is I did make those hard phone calls. People appreciate that, when you're honest with them, and people get it. People, but traders don't have that luxury. Traders, they've got to find winning trades. So I started learning how traders do their stock picks. And that will lead me into my next episode, my next live stream, where I will be talking about my confessions as a trader. So hope you join me for that. That's it for today. Ed Anderson, live from Minnesota, signing out.